I do have some questions about Dormi. First of all, when it comes to getting the token from the various services, from what I understand, this is something that the users themselves have to do manually. It's not something you can roll out with a Marvel client or stuff like that.
No, it's correct. It is something that has to be done by each user manually because the tokens are user specific. So every user has their own token that they have to use their own authentication for. So in order to keep it properly secure, each user will have to create their own token.
Great.
Which is as simple as pressing the button and copying and pasting.
Good. And also I saw a lot of pop-ups popping up telling the users what's going on as well. So
because it's open source, the code is there. If your users decide they're unhappy with the pop-ups, we wanted to make sure that everybody could see what was happening all the time, be aware of it. But because the code is wide open, if your users really don't like that, it's simply it's a single line of loader script to make that go away.
And the installer database is also written in such a way that it could be utilized to install really any feature into any mail database or any database or template. So if there's some industrious developers out there who wanted to exploit that, they could. It's all open.
Great. And I just got a feedback in the YouTube chat here that HCL people are great. So
of course we are.
Thank you, YouTube.
Positive comments on YouTube. That's good.
I think there is something more to say because I've seen this question coming up. If that also works with the Nodes Basic client, and for the technical audience might have realized, since this is written in Loader script, plain Loader script, of course it does work in the Basic client. And since you can run Loader script even in HCL Nomad, it's also intended to work nice in Nomad. And the way it was architected also is preparing this integration to also work in other mail clients, like for instance in Verse. And I think, Paul, you've done some experiments there.
Yeah, I've done some experiments, yeah, it's my experiments are really around the Verse UI and what was possible from there. But these are just Loader script agents. We've deliberately separated the Notes client UI stuff from the backend stuff that's needed. So it's deliberately designed in a way that Verse could just reuse those agents as well to use exactly the same process to get the updated URLs and everything by calling the agent and running on the server as opposed to running from the browser. So it gives that extra level of security in that your tokens are never going to then be passed in browser communication. They're just going to be passed from the server.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys for that. I hope you stick around a bit because we have a Q&A now. I have a lot of questions to go through, so I'll just start. And anybody who wants to answer this question, just unmute yourself and answer. I think that the first one I got is from for Thomas, and that's when it comes to tabs on the workspace, on the new workspace. It's now collapsible, which is great. However, will you be able to reorder the tabs on the Nodes workspace?
That is maybe a question that Agnes should answer because that's on her backlog planning. I'm sure we've been talking about. Agnes, yes. Are you around?
Yep, I'm around. So currently, reorder the workspace is not available for 12.0, but we are planning this for the next coming release. So that will be something on our one of our top priority for the workspace enhancement. Yeah.
Excellent news. Thank you. I was also asked, what is the purpose of having a 64-bit client? Does it make the client faster, or are there other advantages in having a 64-bit client?
Yeah, so for this question, so having the 64-bit client so mainly is to be compatible with the operation system, because now 64-bit client is an industry standard. And to provide this, we also allow like other third-party vendor to upgrade their software to 64-bit. I mean, the integration with Notes client. And under the current situation, like we foresee that like the OS like will retire at 32-bit support in maybe in the near future, and that's why providing 64-bit is to mainly cope with the standard, and it doesn't need to be it doesn't relate it to performance at all. So maybe I think for this side, like Thomas, do you want to add more like points from a technical perspective?
Yeah, I mean, you rightly said that the operating system vendors are forcing desktop applications, client applications to be 64-bit. I mean, this is the future that they have defined. Also, integrating or communicating from one desktop application to another desktop application, from like a 32-bit Notes client to a 64-bit Office product suite, that there are some challenges, because you cannot call a 64-bit API if you're on a 32-bit client, and that's why the IT industry is moving on to 64-bit. Overall, just technically speaking, a 64-bit client requires a little bit more memory, because all the internal pointers are 64-bit, and 64-bit takes more memory space. But of course, the Notes client can then also leverage more memory if it needs to. Does the Notes client require a lot of memory? And I would say most of the users out there will say no, you can happily live along with the memory space that you are currently having. However, we would like to build a product that is rock solid and sustainable for the future. So that's why we have to provide you with a 64-bit client, so that your investment is protected for the next years to come.
Great. Also, when it comes to the new functionality where you can choose the user when sending an email from Notes, will this also work in iNotes and on Verse on-premise?
Okay, I will take this question. So for iNotes, and as always, we are not adding new functionality to iNotes, so that's why this feature is not going to be available on iNotes. But for Verse on-premises, that is something that we are planning to support. It may come a little bit like later than V12, but we are currently working on that. So we will release a timeline maybe in the coming weeks, so to see like when this can support. Yeah.
Okay, great. And also, when it comes to choosing a user, there was an example where you sent from a help desk, and one of the viewers asked, is it possible to suppress that it says sent from admin in the email that has been sent from the help desk? I think we saw that in the demo. It looked like that.
Yes, that's right. We saw that in the demo. Agnes, I don't know if you have a comment about this, but that was when you open up the email that was sent from a different name, you see the original sender name still listed there, and there was a request. I think we've seen that in our ideations platform, to really send the name without listing who it originally came from, without listing the username. We talked about that in our backlog planning.
Yeah, so yeah, I think that is something we will look into, and we'll see like how this can be included as an like enhancement.
Okay. The Domino Designer, what are the plans for the Domino Designer? Will it be modernized with integration with source control and easy integration for other platforms? What are your plans when it comes to the Designer client?
There was a reason why we were not revealing too much in today's session, because there is more to come, and I really cannot share everything, even though this is a community meeting, even though I really want to tell you. But there is more to come, and of course, more to come for app developers to make it easier for you to develop new applications on the platform, whether you are a low-code, a mid to pro-code, or a pro-code developer.
Okay, so we'll live in suspense. When it comes to connections, I hope Adam is here and can ask this. Somebody asked for two-factor authentication for connections.
It is a request that we've been getting. It is something that we're tracking through AHA and are looking at it. It's not something that we'll be doing in Connections 8, but it's something we can look at for Connections 9.
Okay. And also with connections, when it comes to the connections plugin, this is a question I got via email before the conference today, and community files. It's not possible to synchronize community files like you can do with your personal files in connections via the Explorer plugin. Is that something you are looking into?
It's something we look into. Again, this is a request that's we would love to be able to meet, because we certainly understand the applicability and how it would be much more helpful to be able to do this. The way we do need to spend more time looking at it. There are differences, below the surface of connections between personal files and community files that sometimes make things like this a lot harder than it would seem to do, which is the reason we haven't just gone ahead and been able to do it before. But it is something we're looking at. We do have an engineering team looking at it to at least to be able to assess and see if it's something we can prioritize, or if it's something that will need to be addressed down the line more.
Great. I guess this next question is for you, Thomas. Do we still have to do they need to have port 80 open for the Domino server for Let's Encrypt to work?
The Let's Encrypt protocol requires the inbound port 80 to be responsive, because this is the port which Let's Encrypt will be using to reach back into to validate that the server requesting a certificate is you. If you don't want to open up port 80, if you, like, for instance, have a server that is completely behind a firewall, completely locked down, you can use the DNS challenge, which means you don't have to have that port open. You just update your DNS server with the validation, what's it called? A DNS text record. The Let's Encrypt integration that we have built in Domino is already capable of doing that. So the straight answer would be no, you don't need that. But I hope that the explanation I just provided you with, is enough to understand why that is.
This wasn't a question, it was more maybe just a comment or maybe a request, I don't know. It would be cool to be able to run iOS Nomad on an M1 Mac.
Yes, it would be cool, but we decided not to do that because various reasons. And the Notes client is supporting the M1 chips, so you can install just the Notes client and run your apps over there.
Mm-hmm. Now we're moving over to Sametime. Somebody asked if in the old Sametime, the IBM Sametime, you also had a plugin for the meeting Sametime server in the right sidebar. Will that be available? Such a meeting client be available for Notes with Sametime 11.5?
So this is a Notes embedded client, Hogne, right? That's the question. The meeting sidebar. I guess the short answer is we are looking into even giving you a better user experience than just it's that legacy widgets, right? We're talking where it's a sidebar, a plugin. I think what we are trying to focus on is something that's even simpler than that, right? Maybe it's through chat you can get to all your meetings instead of that sidebar. So I guess we're still working on, what our strategy is to give you a seamless meetings experience in the Notes client. But there's more to come on that. I do know, I know Agnes is here. Agnes, I have been talking about from the worst perspective. We already have stories fleshed out what we want to do. And Notes client is something on our mind as well, right? How can we bring that to Notes too? I can't share more than that at this point, but there is stuff that we are looking at, how to give a seamless meeting experience in Notes client as well.
Okay, thank you. And speaking of Verse, when is Verse going to be better integrated with Connections and Sametime?
Speaking of better integrated, I think this is a broad perspective, but I think when it comes to connection integration, I know that maybe the community also have question about when are we going to support connection 6.5 and 7. So I can provide an update for this one. So we're currently working on testing, and it works quite well in terms of progress. So if we are if I continue with this progress, I hope that we'll be able to claim the support for connection 6.5 and 7 in the coming Verse release. So that's the update for connection. And then another thing is that I know there's also question or request about supporting community files integration with Verse, so you're able to upload or select community files as an email attachment, and we are looking into that as well. So that is one of our in our backlog right now. While for Sametime, as Skinny has mentioned, we are first in with the new IF pack from Sametime, which was released in February. You can now use the new Sametime web client in Verse. So, and that is not a function that belongs to the latest release of Verse. So even though you're on an older version of Verse, with the latest IF pack from Sametime, you can also use the new web experience. And for other integrations, so we are looking into reply initiate a group chat from the email interface. So this kind of experience is something that we are looking into right now. So I think that's the update.
Okay, great, thank you. Back to Connections. Somebody in the chat said that deployment of the component package is very complicated. Too complicated was the phrase. Is this something you're looking into, Adam, to simplify it?
It is, and we've gotten that feedback, and we're working with our documentation team and the engineering team to see what we can do to both make sure we're providing clear guidance on how to deploy it, as well as fixing what we can on the back end to make it easier to deploy.
Okay, good. Also, yeah, it was mentioned a bit, but I see the question popped up again. Could maybe the Dormi team repeat the requirements to use which Domino server do you need to be able? Sorry, Notes client version and mail template version. Did you need?
I'm still sharing, I think.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. So the reason for FixPack 3 for 1101 was that we encountered an issue with returning or parsing out the status code that comes back from the meeting providers with the Notes HTTP request. That was fixed in 1101 FixPack 3. So that's the requirement for that for the client. These are only requirements on the client because it's only running on the client.
Good. I was also asked, does the Teams integration with Dormi support MFA?
Yes. Yeah, the MFA part only comes in when you're going through the OAuth dance. And because the OAuth process goes off to the relevant meeting provider, so Teams, Zoom, whatever, for the entering your credentials for that meeting provider and receiving a code back, because that's all done on the browser on those meeting providers, there are no limitations whatsoever. So it works for requiring a Microsoft Authenticator login as well, which is what we were using for Teams. Similarly for Zoom. For my Zoom login, I was using my Google credentials, and so it goes off via Google then to do the authentication, and yep, that all works.
Excellent. And I should probably explain to the people who don't know what MFA is. That means multi-factor authentication, which most online vendors use these days. Also, a connections question here that probably is for you, Adam. What about the connections plugins for nodes? What's happening there? Now, first of all, I know that you just released a new version which works stable on version 12, and I'm really happy about that. But do you know anything about the strategy concerning the plugins for nodes?
Yeah, that's something that we're working with. The connections team is working with the Domino team on that going forward. As you said, we just released the latest version, updated version of that. And I believe we'll be looking to, at a minimum, make sure we're staying current with the latest versions of connections. If and how we're able to add additional functionality is something that we need to work with, in collaboration with the Domino team, and then based on feedback that we're getting from all of you on what you're using and what's working and not working and what else you want to see there.
Excellent. And what about the plugins for Office and Windows Explorer? Anything new there?
We don't have anything new in the roadmap there for the near future now.
Oh, okay.